The year is 146 BCE. The Roman Republic stands triumphant as the dominant power in the Mediterranean, having utterly vanquished her great rival Carthage in the Third Punic War, and defeated the Achaean League of Greek city-states fighting to stave off Roman hegemony in the Hellenic world. Like Carthage, the once great city of Corinth is now a smoldering ruin, its treasures having been carted off to adorn the temples of Rome, and its people taken in bondage to toil on Roman farms. For decades now, Rome had been on a staggering upward trajectory. Formerly the dominant power of central Italy, they had grown to be the undisputed suzerain of the entire Mediterranean in just over a century, a staggering expansion that shocked the rest of the world. But not the Romans themselves. For the Romans were always conscious of their unique destiny to build an empire without limit. The seemingly inevitable nature of their conquests were attributed to their exceptional moral character and a unique system of government that the Romans believed maximized liberty while also inculcating a sense of duty and resolve in its citizens. To the Romans, the Republic was self-evidently superior to all other forms of government. Its sustained success on the battlefield was all the proof they needed. But within another century, the Republic would be dead, though Rome would emerge from the tribulation stronger and more dominant than ever. Its proud republican principles, the very ideals Romans believed had made them the strongest power in the Mediterranean world, withered and died within just 100 years. They were replaced by the monarchist absolutism that every Roman, nurtured by stories of how their ancestors had expelled the hated king Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, grew up loathing. The Republic was a victim of its own success, and its foundational values could not be reconciled with its new position of power. The story is a familiar one. Even Romans living in the last years of the Republic, like the historian Sallust, came to view the rapid expansion of territory and sudden influx of treasure and slaves as destabilizing to the governing norms and institutions of the Republic, as well as the Mos Maiorum, the Latin term used to describe the overriding principles of the Roman Republic, with these values and precedents forming the backbone of its unwritten constitution. The riches associated with foreign conquest were producing successive generations of Roman aristocratic politicians that increasingly viewed the Mos Maiorum as a hindrance to Rome's destiny, and more importantly, their own wealth and prestige. The principles that had guided Rome were being abandoned in favor of bold new ambitions as the Republic cracked under the weight of its own success. The immense financial rewards that now accompanied high office, and the possible destitution that awaited potential losers, greatly increased the gap between the upper strata of the Roman elite and their senatorial peers. We don't want to oversimplify, or suggest that heightened competitiveness born out of the elite's desire to loot the provinces was the only cause of the Republic's collapse. But it was a significant factor in the unraveling of social bonds within the elite, as individual ambitions began to override shared class interests. So while you've probably heard some version of this before, blame for the collapse of the Republic is often laid at the feet of Julius Caesar. In more nuanced versions, blame is also sometimes given to a series of supposedly malicious actors, such as the Gracchi, Marius, Sulla, Crassus, and Pompey, who were more concerned with personal power than traditional republican values. But making these men into scapegoats places too much of an emphasis on the actions of a handful of individuals, ignoring the pervasive rot at the heart of the Republic, which had fundamentally changed the character of its leaders. The reality is that by the outbreak of the civil war between Caesar and Pompey, there were no true believers left. To take the claims of professed Republicans like Cato or Brutus at face value is to mindlessly buy into their PR. This fundamental shift towards individualism affected the entire Roman aristocracy because its origins lay in one of the chief aspects of their culture, the competition for honors and glory, seemingly divinely sanctioned, that was instilled in Rome's elite from birth. While this drive for recognition and acclaim had inspired the heroism and excellence that had been foundational to Rome's success, the unprecedented riches that now came with office and command were so desirable that violating the Mos Maiorum to secure political victory was no longer unthinkable. Political behavior among the Roman governing class had become fully untethered from any set of common values. Though a clear trend in decreasing political stability can be traced to 133 and the populist reforms of Tiberius Gracchus, the true death spiral of the Republic must be dated to the reactionary dictatorship of Sulla. His violent and repressive reign had been dangerous not just for the precedent it set, but because Sulla did not understand that his efforts to build a stable political system, while simultaneously securing permanent dominance by the elite, were fundamentally contradictory. Sulla's legal codification of the cursus honorum is well known, but in addition to neutering the tribune of the plebs, he increased the total number of magistracies by doubling the number of quaestors from 10 to 20, and brought the number of praetors from 6 to 8. While these reforms were needed, as the Republic had significantly more territory to govern than ever before, Sulla failed to realize that by bringing more men into the cursus honorum, he was only increasing the number of politically active men that would eventually fail to reach high office, as the number of consuls remained set at 2. We can see the dangers posed by this system in the so-called Catilinarian conspiracy of 63, when Lucius Sergius Catilina, a man of ancient patrician lineage and a staunch supporter of Sulla, organized a conspiracy with other malcontents to overthrow the Republic after his third failed campaign for the consulship. Cicero famously sniffed out the plot and prevailed against the conspirators in the Senate, yet their treachery was a testament to just how desperate for high office those in the Roman nobility had become. Catiline's desperation was fed not only by his lust for glory, but by the very real demands of his creditors, for he had gone deep into debt to finance his consular campaigns. The massive cost now associated with running for office made it prohibitive to all but the wealthiest members of the Roman elite, and even they seem to have had to regularly take out loans to finance their bids. This added another layer to the competition, because no longer was a campaign simply about personal glory or continuing a distinguished family tradition of service. Now a man and his entire family could be financially ruined if he failed to secure his desired post. This was one of the chief factors which led to increasingly unscrupulous behavior, such as wanton bribery and even street violence to secure victory. Winning was all important because a consul or praetor would, after his year in office, be selected to govern a province, while in the provinces a Roman governor had nearly free rein to enrich himself. This ranged from carting off local treasures and openly accepting bribes to engaging in military action that, if successful, could see the wealth and even the inhabitants of entire regions become the private property of Roman magistrates. There was a Roman saying, smart governors stole enough not just to pay back their creditors, but enough to bribe the jury, if needed, at a potential corruption trial. Like all Roman magistracies, provincial governorships tended to be short by modern standards, typically just a year. This was intended to limit the ability of any single individual to build independent political power. But in reality, all it did was encourage governors to steal everything that wasn't bolted down as rapidly as they could. They knew they only had a year to recoup their debts and build a war chest for future political endeavors. This was nearly the worst possible system of administration imaginable. Governors were directly incentivized to fleece provincials, knowing full well that any future rumblings of revolt would be their successors' problem. The game was to get in, to get rich, and to get out. Furthermore, in addition to the wealth that provincial governors secured, they also cultivated important relationships with local elites and communities, sometimes enlisting entire regions as clients and allowing them to build political power bases that were not subject to any oversight by Rome itself and would not expire with their term as magistrate. As the gulf between the successful and unsuccessful clans widened, every candidate became aware that failure was not an option. He must win at any cost. Republics cannot survive for long when winning an election takes precedence over the integrity of the election itself. This was the catalyst for the steady degradation of Republican political values, an erosion of shared norms and trust that culminated in the widespread political violence of 52, following the assassination of the radical populist Clodius by the Optimates. Consular elections were cancelled, and a crisis of legitimacy followed, eventually resulting in the Senate proclaiming Pompey as sole consul. Never mind that the Senate had no authority to select consuls, or that the position of sole consul had never existed before. From this point forward, the Republic was in permanent crisis, as the legitimacy of any given office holder was now subject to doubt by his political opponents. The civil war between Pompey and Caesar was only a few years away. Both sides in this bloody civil war seemed to have honestly believed they were fighting to restore the Republic itself, to liberate the Roman state from the undue influence of a malicious and corrupt faction. If only their political enemies were vanquished, they both said, then liberty could truly be restored. Perhaps this is what Caesar, the victor, really intended to do, but he was assassinated less than a year after his total victory, and his final plans remain unclear. What we do know, however, is that just over a decade later, when the forces of his adopted son, Octavian, battled Mark Antony, that no one was under any illusions about the fate of the Republic. These soldiers were not fighting to restore liberty or to reinstill popular respect for the Mos Maiorum, but to install an autocrat. They were not divided over political issues at all, merely over which autocrat had the right to take the reins of the Roman state. In 31, with the Battle of Actium concluded and Antony's defeat a foregone conclusion, Octavian's rise to unquestioned dominance was complete. The Republic was dead, though Octavian, soon to be Augustus, would continue to appropriate its legacy and legitimacy as a guise for his authoritarian rule. But let's return once more to 146, that year in which Rome had definitively vanquished its most fearsome foes and stood astride the Mediterranean like a colossus. And yet, at this moment of victory, the Republic that had trampled the world was already gone, even if its full dramatic unraveling was yet to come. It had lost no war with a foreign enemy. It had lost a battle with itself, over its identity. The Roman elite had chosen wealth and foreign conquest over liberty. They were the true gravediggers of the Republic, but their behavior, more different from their predecessors in degree than in kind, laid bare the lie that had always undergirded the Republican system. The Republic may have been conceived as an experiment in liberty and self-rule, but in practice it had always been a vehicle for an exploitative class to enrich itself and entrench its own interests. When material conditions changed, allowing for unprecedented acquisition of wealth, the government changed accordingly. The vestiges of the Republic fell away, so that the Roman state's true raison d'etre could continue with minimal interruption. And while its new leaders still made the customary genuflections before the old gods in their temples, they in fact lay fully prostrate before different deities altogether. The object of their worship, and the very force that animated them, was their own greed and desire for accumulation. Liberty cannot survive long when these are the gods of the state.
Hi, this is Titus from Tribunet. If you enjoyed the video you just saw by Gaius, and if you're interested in thoughtful content that explores the complex culture of the ancient Romans, don't forget to hit like and subscribe.